Live on a Wednesday evening, July 24th. Welcome inside the channel. Glad you're here. Lots to discuss here, including Rams head coach Sean McVay giving the Ravens and last year's Ravens defense in particular a rather surprisingly significant compliment, I would say, especially coming from a bright offensive mind and a Super Bowl champion winning head coach in Sean McVay. We'll also go through day 4 of Ravens training camp, which wrapped up earlier today. And as always, if you've been enjoying the content, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We are just weeks away from kickstarting, maybe a little bit more than weeks, but just over 40 days from kickstarting the 2024 NFL regular season when the Ravens will travel to Arrowhead to play the Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday, September 5th. Today's live stream is brought to you by my friends at Primary Residential Mortgage. And without further ado, let's jump right into the day that it was. And luckily, for those of you who've been wanting to see number 8 make his training camp debut in 2024, you guys got what you were looking for today. After missing the first 3 days of camp with an illness, Lamar showed up and he was in attendance. But as Jonas Schaefer noted, unofficially, it was a statistical difficult day for him in 11-on-11 action. He went 1 for 5. He had a check down to Rasheen Ali. He overthrew Devontae Walker down the sideline, which was closely contested. He overthrew Rashad Bateman on a crosser, which in tight coverage, which was picked off by Marlon Humphrey, one of many for the defense, by the way. It's been a defensive dominance just in terms of the first few days. He missed Justice Hill on a screen pass. It was a pressured throw. No pads are out yet, so we're not going to make any crazy, I guess, no blanket statements, right? And no crazy analysis or, look, before the pads come on, you can only go so far in terms of making observations, in terms of, putting things in ink. Let's call it that. And then another check down to Justice was dropped. So some of this was out of his control, but I just think some general rustiness is fair to say for Lamar, who, based on the beat reporters that saw him out there and observed him from the sidelines, he just looked like he was a guy that was kind of not anywhere near 100% in terms of, overall feeling and overall health. Clearly, he's banged up with something in a non-physical side of things. And Jeff noted that on Twitter. He practiced for a little over an hour before heading inside with a few members of the team's athletic training staff. He looked a bit weary in Jeff's mind, which presumably was a result of battling an illness and practicing in high heat and humidity. For those of you in the Maryland area, in the Baltimore area, I am right now. Finally got back here after, almost a month in upstate New York. It's hot and muggy. So that couldn't have helped, just in terms of where Lamar's at. Other note, all coordinators met with the media earlier today for press conferences, and Todd Monken said that he doesn't feel behind given Lamar's absences due to the illness. He said that he was a big part of the offseason. He was in the meetings today and was great in the early part of practice before he went back inside after an hour or so. So certainly not something, again, this is the time of year where I think we're all just excited to have football content we can sink our teeth into yet again, have something substantive to talk about. But let's not be out here, and I get it, like beat reporters' jobs are to track the statistics of quarterbacks and really all players of note skill-wise, not just skill players, but you will see over the next month plus Lamar Jackson's statistics tracked endlessly to a T thoroughly. And just because those are being tracked and logged and analyzed doesn't necessarily mean, I don't think that there should be anything crazy to come out of that, right? Let's not make any generalizations or statements from training camp. The same could be said for Daniel Fa'alele being moved and to guard, right? Getting reps in at right guard before the pads have come on. We know that it's going to be a heavily competitive position for sure. Saleh is going to be in the mix there, as is Ben Cleveland. I remember Saleh was being moved around up and down the line last year. And everybody was just like, all right, well, not everybody, but I'm like, let's just pump the brakes before we start making shoe-ins and other observations. Ryan Mick noted again just how dominant of a defensive performance this has been to start out camp. That continued today in day 4. It was another interception-filled day. And again, keep in mind, a lot of this has been without Lamar, right? So it's been backup quarterbacks. It's been an undrafted rookie in Emory Jones. It's been one of the rookies in Devin Leary. But Marlon Humphrey had 2 today. Marcus Williams had a pick 6. And Kyle Hamilton, Jalen Armour Davis, and Trayvon Mullen also each had an interception. So, yeah, no surprise, right? The defense, it's typically advantage defense this time of year. And then you take Lamar out of the equation, and of course, that's going to go through the roof. One note here from Monken on Rashad Bateman. He noted that we're expecting great things from him. That was the direct quote. And Jonas also noted that Rashad has probably been the team's top wide receiver through the first 4 practices. So a good sign there, albeit early, a good sign from Rashad that he is in the mix. And for the first time in his NFL career, he is healthy for a full training camp. Doesn't have to worry about rehab. Doesn't have to worry about trying to kind of fight, scratch and claw from behind. No, he's ready to go. He looks healthy. He feels healthy based on what he said. And everybody has kind of echoed Todd Monken's sentiment, right? We're expecting great things from him. Mark Andrews has been outspoken on that, as has John Harbaugh. And really, without saying so, even though they have said similarly, the front office backing that up as well with an extension that even surprised Rashad this past offseason. He's noted that in a couple different interviews. It caught him off guard. So again, the Odafe Owehs, the Rashad Batemans, perhaps even the Fa'aleles at guard. There's reason for optimism and excitement, but let's just hold our horses before we get too down the road prior to pads coming on. That's all I'm saying. Before we get to Sean McVay's comments on the Ravens, this episode is brought to you by my friends at Primary Residential Mortgage, and they got a cool opportunity coming up here. And I would love for you to consider joining them for an insightful home buying webinar led by the industry experts on the process of purchasing your dream home. So whether you're a first-time buyer or you're just looking to upgrade, the mortgage professional and expert speaker and my friend Zach Evans from Primary will guide you through every step of this journey. Don't miss this chance to turn your home ownership dreams into reality. The seminar is going to be held on Wednesday, August 21st from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. You can scan the QR code that you see on the screen to register right now. That'll secure your spot, and it'll also enter you for a chance to win a $25 gift card. So if you want to get educated and ask some questions and have Zach at your beck and call, could be a great opportunity if you want to if you're in the home buying process this summer. So appreciate Zach and his entire team at Primary Residential Mortgage locally here in Baltimore for giving me this opportunity to share this. And again, you don't have to necessarily be in the Baltimore area to take advantage of it. More information can be found in the show notes below. Sean McVay. Keep in mind, prior to these comments, Sean put up one of the best offensive performances against Mike McDonald's defense a year ago. It was in December, and of course, it was that overtime victory for the Ravens in walk-off fashion when Tylan Wallace returned a punt for the win. An unbelievable game. 37-31 was the final score. A home game in December. Lamar went 24 of 43 that day, 3 touchdowns and an interception. He also had 70 yards on the ground for 11 carries. That was prior to Keaton Mitchell's injury. He had 9 carries for 54 yards. And OBJ had a great game against his former team. 4 receptions for a season-high 97 yards, including a touchdown and that long of 46. You might remember this. Matthew Stafford was on fire that game at times as well. The reason why I share this story, though, is just keep in mind, McVay had one of the best games against the Ravens and found a way to hang 31 points on them. Not something a lot of teams were able to do against Mike McDonald and Roquan Smith's Ravens a season ago. And yet, all these months later, He's talking about the Ravens in this light. Listen to this, courtesy of The Athletic.
Pushing things forward and the defense to push things forward. He's now in your division, which sucks about.
Yeah, you know what? I love it as a competitor, but the respect that I have for McDonald, I'm like, damn.
So now we have 4 or 5 teams that are going to run that defense.
Yeah.
It feels like every couple of years we get a new defense this year. Why do you feel like that system is now something that people are trying to steal from, and what makes it difficult?
Well, it's the teams that are the best, usually get mimicked and emulated and really studied hard. And so you say, why were they successful? Here's the thing I would say going into that game. I got a ton of respect for Mike McDaniel and their coaching staff and those players that brought the stuff to life. What I think when you watch that team, there was a clear-cut identity. There was an understanding of the intent of what he was calling and how they could execute it. There was a great idea and understanding of how to utilize their personnel. I thought they rushed 4 as 1 as well as anybody. I mean, like they had a great ability to be able to play off of one another. I thought Mike did a great job of mixing in, pressures, understanding situations, understanding how to attack protections. Kyle Hamilton, I think, is one of the ultimate chess pieces. I love that guy. He and I went to the same high school, but I think he's such a baller. I thought they did a great job of playing coverages where you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm going against because of the way they're teaching guys. They teach an understanding of how route concepts distribute and how you don't have to work as hard throughout the course of the down to allow things to be able to progress. You felt like you were playing against 13 players sometimes. And obviously, Roquan does such a great job with his communication, his command. Thought Patrick Queen was excellent. But really, overall, I thought they were such a well-coordinated and a well-executed defense from the players to the coaches. And I respect the coordinators the most, that you can see an intent behind what they're trying to get done. And I thought that showed up consistently on his tape.
Selfishly, I am excited that I get to watch.
Yeah, no, and I am too as a competitor, but it's gonna be a great challenge, and shoot, he's got some pretty damn good players to work with in Seattle. That I know there's some positive buzz coming out of there.
It's gonna be a fun year in the NFC West period.
Okay, so first and foremost, he meant to say Mike McDonald there within the first part of that snippet. Now, why did he say Mike McDaniel? Well, you might know if you followed the history of some of these coaches that were all in Washington together from 2011 to 2013 under then head coach Mike Shanahan with the then Redskins. I'm talking about Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, and Mike McDaniel were all on the same staff in Washington. And look at where every single one of those guys is right now. Every one of them is an NFL head coach. It's exceptional. And of course, McVay is the first head coach to win a Super Bowl among those 4. So I think it's safe to say that he and Mike have a great relationship. Now, he's referring to, and a lot of people get this mixed up, and I get it. I've probably done it before too. He's referring to Mike McDonald, former Ravens defensive coordinator, the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks that the Rams will be seeing quite often, and Sean McVay is going to have to account for because of how tremendous of a season he had. He is on the rise. He was a hot commodity this past offseason. And as much as this is about Mike McDonald, it's also about the personnel that he had at his disposal. You heard him say, and first of all, how about some of the quotes in there? You felt like you were playing against 13 players sometimes. Gosh, that is incredibly, incredibly complimentary. And he made sure to also talk about Kyle Hamilton as well. We have heard Kyle Hamilton, we have heard inside and outside the building, people talk incredibly glowingly about a third-year player. A third-year player who perhaps fell in the 2022 draft to the Ravens and fell in their lap because of his 40 time. Perhaps because of, we're not going to pick a safety that high. Well, all of a sudden, you've got pass game coordinator and assistant head coach Chris Hewitt earlier today referring to him as generational. You've got Zach Orr earlier in the offseason talking about his lofty goals. He wants him to one day be looked at and be a defensive player of the year. Not just candidate, but somebody who is a DPOY, defensive player of the year. Like, that's the expectation. After 2 years, a small sample size for a guy who can be used in unicorn-like ways on the defensive side of football. Look at the snap count from a year ago. They used him literally. The usage was all over the field. And as Marlon Humphrey put it this week, aside from nose guard, what can't he do on a football field? Defensively wise, on the defensive side of the football. So it's just a good time to revisit some comments made by Rod Woodson, former Raven Hall of Famer, who Sarah and I had a chance to catch up with on Radio Row in Las Vegas at the Super Bowl just back in February. And what's Kyle's ceiling?
I think it's high. How high? That's up to Kyle, right? And you really never know. I think he plays better closer to the line of scrimmage. Yeah, he could be good if you put him in the middle of the field, but now you got one of your best athletes 15 yards away from the quarterback. Yeah, I don't know if I want to do that. He's further along, and I said this multiple times in the booth. He's further along than I was when I first came to the league. I wasn't all pro my second year. I wasn't even close.
How long did it take?
My third year, but I was a returner.
Third.
My third year, I was a Pro Bowl player my third year. But he has to keep growing, which I know he will, and have to. Then I think once he really figures the game out, he's going to start doing what the great players do. Show that quarterback one thing where I'm not doing it, and I'm going to do something else. I want you to do something that I want you to do, and I'm going to bait you into it. And then once they do it, go make a play.
Fantastic interview there from Rod Woodson, who was kind enough to join us for a few minutes. And you heard, again, that was back in February, but you heard him say, what he had to say about Kyle Hamilton and the way that he views him as being ahead of him at this point in his career. Chris Hewitt, the full quote from earlier today at his press conference, again, Ravens pass game coordinator, assistant head coach, which was held last year by Anthony Weaver, who left for Miami. Chris said, quote, "He's a unicorn. He's a one of one. There's not many guys who come along like that. He's like a generational type player. You don't see many guys who are 6'4" who can run and change direction the way he does and still play with violence." I love that quote from Chris Hewitt on Kyle Hamilton. He is a budding star in this league. He's a budding star and a bona fide superstar for the Ravens. And quite frankly, they can't afford to not have him on the football field. So good stuff there from Sean McVay. Again, just high praise for the Ravens. And I know he was speaking to last year's unit because of the fact that he's got to see Mike McDonald and the Seattle Seahawks now twice a year for the foreseeable future. But what this to me also says is a lot of that personnel, a chunk of that superstar personnel too, is back in Baltimore. There hasn't been a ton of roster turnover when it comes to the defensive standouts, aside from Patrick Queen and Jadeveon Clowney a year ago. Looking forward to seeing what it's like for Zach Orr, who's going to be drinking from the fire hose, no question, right out of the gate when he faces one of the greatest play callers in the history of the game, and Andy Reid, in a rematch, of course, of last year's AFC Championship game. Sean also went on to say, "I thought they were such a well-coordinated and a well-executed defense from the players to the coaches." So it's not just love for Mike McDonald. You have to include the players in that as well. And let's see. As a first-year DC in Zach, let's see how long of a learning curve it will take, how long it will take for him to truly feel comfortable in regular season game speed. How much can John Harbaugh simulate? How much can he put Zach in a position where he's feeling great and confident and well-versed going into that September 5th game? Wink Martindale made it clear to us a couple weeks ago when he came on the channel. What did he say? I can't remember the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, John's going to make him feel like $1 million going into that game. So this is not Harb's first rodeo in terms of trying to groom new defensive coordinators to what he expects and giving him the free rein. So I'll be very, 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 very interested. I don't think there's a more compelling storyline or something that I'll be watching more closer than the way Zach Orr adjusts for that September 5th game. Couple live chat comments before I jump. Laura on Twitter says, "I'm just glad to see Lamar out there trying to get it in. Nothing new to us. Whenever we don't feel good, it just doesn't feel right." No question. He gave it a shot, best shot. The chef says, "Good evening, Bobby. Welcome back to Baltimore. Appreciate it. It's great to be back. Really looking forward to it." Lady Laura says, "I'm just glad to see him out there trying to get it in. Just out here preparing to not let the Swelsies," I see what you did there, the Swelsies, win again. Prayers up for Lamar. Tanya says Lamar tried to come back, maybe too soon. He is probably dehydrated. I have Horace Taurus says yes, food poisoning is no joke if that's what it is. We're not sure if that's the case, but you never know. Appreciate you guys for being with me on this Wednesday evening. Heading into my birthday weekend. Looking forward to getting to Ocean City Thursday through Sunday. Got guys coming in from all over, from here in Baltimore, from upstate New York, from Boston that gets into BWI tonight. They're actually just delayed. I don't know if there's inclement weather here. I know it's been an on and off day of rain, perhaps up in Boston, but it's going to be a fun weekend. The Dirty 30 for me is on Saturday, July 27th. So looking forward to celebrating. Sarah, of course, will be in the saddle Thursday and Friday for Ravens Lunch Hour live streams. And then on Monday, I'll be back with you solo while Sarah gets a little day in with her kids on the lake. They're doing a boat rental. And of course, the two of us will be back in full swing on Tuesday, July 30th. So look forward to it. I appreciate you guys for dropping by the channel. I'm going to try and fit more live content in, I think, moving forward. It's a fun way to just interact with you guys, and hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. So like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and consider popping in for that home buying webinar that Primary Residential Mortgage is offering. Could be a good opportunity to learn more. And if maybe you don't want to learn more or you're not interested, maybe you know somebody who does. All that information can be found in the show notes. Tanya, I appreciate the wishes and all of your support all the time. You guys are the best. And I hope you guys check out Sarah tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, Inside the Vault, right here on YouTube. And of course, it's always repurposed and edited down for audio only purposes, which we do on a daily basis. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Have an awesome rest of your night. Later.